American Mother in 1955 had no parenting books on her shelf, no expert podcasts in her ear, no online forums, no gentle parenting courses, and no phone full of advice from strangers. She had, by any modern measure, almost no information about child psychology at all, and her children, by most accounts, did as they were asked. They sat at the table. They spoke to adults politely. They played for hours without being entertained. They heard the word no and accepted it. Today, we have more parenting knowledge than any generation in human history. Shelves of books, armies of experts, endless research at our fingertips.
In his backpack, and my son catches the bus at 6:40. His start time is 7:15, which is so early, but before I'm going to walk my son to the bus stop, which is right at the corner of our street, and then when I come back, it is about 6:41, is having her smoothie and watching a show on TV. I am going to make my bed. I am one of those people that...
The calm, steady kind that actually work. These are 15 of them. Number 15. She decided the thing once, and then it was simply true. The modern household runs on negotiation. Every request becomes a discussion. Every no becomes an opening bid. And the child learns very quickly that a rule is not a wall, but a door that opens if you push on it long enough, cry hard enough, or ask enough times. The parent, worn down, gives in on the 10th ask.
Go watch TV, or he'll go outside for about an hour to play with the neighbor.
A 1950s mother decided a thing once, said it once, and then it was simply how things were. Bedtime was 7 o'clock, not 7, negotiable to 8 if there was whining. 7. The rule was not defended, re-argued, or justified every night. It was a fact of the house, like the walls. The mechanism is the one every child psychologist now confirms. Children are not actually made secure by getting their way. They are made
which is
secure
right down the street.
by knowing
So
where
when
the edges
they get
are.
home,
A
they're
rule
just going to
that
hang out and watch
holds every
TV,
time
and
is a
I'm going
wall
to
a child
make
can
my...
lean on.
And
A rule
typically,
that
we
moves is a
usually
wall
give the
that might
kids
fall on
different
them, so they
dinners
push
than
it
me and my
constantly
husband
to find
eat.
out.
They're only...
She was not being rigid. She was giving them something solid to stand against. A rule you will re-argue every night is not a rule. It is an opening offer. The next rule is the one that made the word no mean something. Number 14. She said no once and meant it, and never said it when she didn't. The modern no is exhausted from overuse and then quietly surrendered. It is said reflexively, 20 times a day, to small things that do not matter. And then, when the child protests, it softens, wobbles, and reverses. The child hears no all day and learns that it is the sound a parent makes right before yes. A 1950s mother said no far less often, and when she said it, it held. She did not say no to the small things that did not matter, which meant she was not fighting battles all day long. But the no she did give was final, and the children knew it, because it had been final every time before. Here is the mechanism, and it is precise. A no that sometimes becomes yes is not a no at all. It is a coin flip, and a child will pull the lever on a coin flip forever, because sometimes it pays out. A no that is always no stops being worth testing within days. She was believed because she was consistent, and consistency, not volume, is what gives a word its weight. A no that might become yes will be tested forever. A no that holds is only tested once. The next rule governed the single most fought-over hour of the day. If these old rules are making sense to you, subscribe. There's a new set every week. Number 13. There was one dinner, and everyone ate it. The modern kitchen at dinner time is a short order counter. One child will not eat this. Another will only eat that. So the mother cooks 2 meals, or 3, or makes a separate plain plate for the fussy one. And the table becomes a restaurant where every diner has sent something back. Dinner is negotiated food by food, bite by bite, every single night. In 1955, there was one dinner, cooked once, and it went on every plate. Nobody was asked what they wanted. If a child did not care for it, they were welcome to eat what was there or wait for breakfast, and the leftover plate quite often reappeared at the next meal. It sounds harsh until you see what it prevented. The mechanism is that a child's fussiness grows in exact proportion to the power it is given. When refusing food summons a better meal, refusing food becomes the smart move, and the list of hated foods grows every week. When refusing food simply means a hungry evening, The fussiness has nothing to feed on and quietly starves. She was not being unkind. She had simply removed the reward that fussiness runs on. A child offered a second menu will always order from. The next rule is the one that did the most work while looking like the least. Number 12. She gave every child real chores from the moment they could walk.
And after the movie is over, it's around 8 p.m. and I'm going to take the kids upstairs and start their bedtime routine. Now that they're older, we have a very school day. She usually will stay up until I'm ready to go to bed and just play in her room or like watch me watch TV from our little loft. It's very competitive, and she also just shows everybody her cards, so it's not really a fair game.
A 1950s child had jobs, and they started young. A 3-year-old carried spoons to the table. A 6-year-old fed the animals and made a bed, however badly. A 10-year-old washed dishes, minded a younger sibling, swept a floor. The chores were real, and they were expected, and no one was praised extravagantly for doing them, because they were simply that child's part of the household's work. This is the highest return habit on the entire list, and modern research has caught up to prove it. Children given genuine responsibility from a young age grow into more capable, more confident, more cooperative people. The single strongest childhood predictor of a functioning adult life is not talent or grades, but having had real chores. A child who contributes to a home feels like a member of it. A child who only consumes feels like a customer, and customers complain. A child who only takes from a home learns to complain about it. A child who helps run it learns to belong to it. The next rule is about the thing modern parents give children most, and it may be the thing that helps them least. Number 11. She gave them far less and let them be bored. The modern child drowns in abundance. A bedroom floor invisible under toys. A shelf of games barely touched.
A private pre-K school, which is right down the street. So when they get home, they're just going to hang out and watch TV, and I'm going to make my kids lunch.
And still the child is restless, dissatisfied, and unable to play alone for 10 minutes. A 1950s child had a handful of toys, a ball, a doll, some blocks, a few treasures, and long, unstructured, unentertained hours to fill. When a child said they were bored, a 1950s mother did not leap to fix it. She said, plainly, "Then find something to do," and turned back to her work. And the child, left with nothing, invented something. The mechanism is one we have almost completely forgotten. Boredom is not a problem to be solved. It is the empty space in which a child's imagination is forced to switch itself on. A child with too much never has to invent anything, and so never learns how. A child with little and time learns to build whole worlds out of a cardboard box, and that capacity to self-direct becomes the foundation of everything. She was not neglecting them. She was leaving room for them to become interesting. A child given everything to play with never learns to play. A bored child invents the world. The next rule is about who was in charge of whom, and it has quietly reversed. Finding value in these? A quick subscribe means the next one comes straight to you. Number 10. The adults ran the house, and the children fit into it. The modern family orbits the child. The schedule bends around their activities, the meals around their preferences, the holidays around their entertainment,
whatever she likes to do. So while she is having her smoothie and watching a show, now that I've gotten myself ready, I've also gotten Quinn ready, and it's 7:40, so I am going to take her to pre-K. It's about a 20.
In the 1950s home, the adults set the shape of the day, and the children fit into it. Dinner was at 6 because that was when it was ready, not when it suited a child. The family went where the parents were going. The child's life was folded into the household's life, not the other way around. The mechanism is subtle and important. A child at the center of everything carries a weight no child is built to carry. The sense that the whole world responds to their wants means every unmet want feels like a catastrophe. A child who is one valued member of a family that does not revolve around them is, paradoxically, more secure because the world feels stable and adult-run and safe. She loved them completely. She simply did not organize the planet around them. A child at the center of the household carries a weight no child was built to hold. The next rule is about what happened in the space between a warning and a consequence. Number 9. She let the consequence happen instead of rescuing them from it.
Math and
the
reading, and
is a
sometimes he gets
full-time
these
rescuer.
little
The forgotten
booklets sent
homework
home,
is
and
driven
other
to the
times
school.
there's
The
like a
forgotten
computer
coat is delivered.
game. No,
The
and
consequence
they
of
both
every
like
small
go fish,
failure
so that's
is
what we're going to play
absorbed by a
tonight.
parent who cannot bear
And
to
Quinn is
watch
so
the child
funny.
feel
She
the
gets
sting.
very competitive,
And so the
and she
child never
also
feels it
just read a book,
and never learns that
that's literally
actions have
it. My
results,
son is
because a
usually
parent
very
has stood
tired from
between
the
them
day,
and
and
every
he'll go
result
right
they
to
ever
sleep.
produced.
But my daughter.
A 1950s mother more often let it land. If a child forgot their lunch, they were hungry until they got home, and they remembered the lunch the next day. If they left a bicycle out and it was ruined by rain, there was not immediately a new one. The lesson was delivered not by a lecture, but by the natural, gentle consequence itself. The mechanism is that consequences are the only teacher a child truly believes. 1,000 warnings about the rain do less than one wet bicycle. The mother who rescues means well, but she quietly robs the child of the lesson, and the lessons only get more expensive as the child grows, until they are learned in adulthood at a terrible price. She let the small lessons be learned small while they were still cheap. A lesson learned from a consequence at 7 is a lesson never learned the hard way at 27. The next rule is about a kind of talk that has almost completely disappeared. Number 8. She expected them to speak to adults and to look them in the eye. The modern child is often permitted to hide. Spoken to by an adult, they bury their face, mumble at the floor, retreat behind a parent, or simply ignore the question, and the parent smooths it over, answers for them, excuses it as shyness, and the child learns that an adult's question is something another adult will handle for them. A 1950s child was expected to answer. When an adult spoke to them, they were to look up, say good morning, answer the question, and speak clearly. It was not about performing for grown-ups. It was a basic competence the child was expected to have, practiced daily until it was second nature. The mechanism is that the ability to look an adult in the eye and speak is not a personality trait a child either has or lacks. It is a skill built entirely through expectation and practice. A child never expected to do it never learns how, and carries the difficulty into a job interview 30 years later. A child expected to do it from the age of 4 simply grows up able to talk to anyone. She was not forcing them. She was handing them a tool they would use for life. Confidence with adults is not a gift a child is born with. It is a habit built one good morning at a time. The next rule is about the exact moment a request became a command. Number 7. She asked once and did not ask again. The modern instruction is repeated into meaninglessness. Put your shoes on is said once, then again, then a third time louder, then counted to 3, then threatened, then shouted, until the 10th repetition finally moves the child, who has learned precisely that the first 9 askings are optional, and only the shouting one is real. The parent has trained the child to ignore them 9 times. A 1950s mother asked once, "Put your shoes on, we are leaving," and then she proceeded as though it would happen, because it always had. There was no counting to 3, because 3 was never needed. The first asking was the real one, and the children knew it, because the first asking had always been the real one. The mechanism is exact and unforgiving. A child obeys on whichever ask is the one that counts, and the parent teaches them which ask that is, by which ask they enforce. Enforce the 10th, and the child waits for the 10th. Enforce the first every time, and the first is the one the child answers to. She got first-time obedience not because her children were different, but because she had never once accidentally taught them to wait for the shouting. A child obeys the ask you enforce. Enforce the 10th, and you have taught them to ignore 9. The next rule is about the one thing every child was given that modern children often are not. Number 6. The day had a fixed shape, and the child could feel it coming. The modern child's day is improvised. Meals happen whenever. Bedtime drifts by an hour or 2, depending on the evening. Naps are skipped. Routines dissolve on weekends and holidays. And the child, never knowing what comes next, lives in a low, constant uncertainty that comes out as clinginess, resistance, and the meltdowns that always seem to arrive when everything is least predictable. The 1950s day ran on rails. Breakfast, then play, then lunch, then a nap or a quiet time, then out to play, then dinner at 6, then bath, then a story, then bed at 7. The same shape every single day. So familiar the child could feel the next thing coming before it arrived. The mechanism is that predictability is, to a small child, a form of safety. A child who knows exactly what comes next does not have to fight it because they saw it coming and made their peace with it 100 days ago. A child who never knows what comes next fights everything because everything is a surprise sprung on them. The fixed routine was not rigid, it was reassuring, and most of the daily battles simply never started because the child was never ambushed. She ran the day on rails, so the child never had to brace for a crash. A child who can see bedtime coming does not fight it. A child ambushed by it always will. If these old habits are landing with you, consider subscribing. Each week, this channel goes back to the quiet wisdom earlier generations lived by, before modern life made everything more complicated and somehow harder. Now, this next one was the most important of all, because it was the one thing she never ever did in front of the children. Number 5. The parents stood together and never disagreed in front of the child. In the modern home, the child sees the crack and drives straight through it. One parent says no, so the child goes to the other, who says yes, and the two adults argue about it in front of the child, who learns brilliantly and instantly that the two grown-ups can be played against each other, and that any no can be overturned by appeal to the other court. The household has two governments, and the child has learned to shop between them. In the 1950s home, whatever the parents felt privately, they presented one answer to the children. If one had said no, the other backed it, and any disagreement between them was settled later, quietly, out of earshot. To the child, the adults were a single unit with a single answer, and there was no crack to drive through and no second court to appeal to. This is the emotional heart of the whole list, because it is not about control, it is about safety. A child who can split the two most important adults in their world against each other has, in a real sense, lost the two people who are supposed to be steady. It frightens a child to be more powerful than their parents. A child who cannot divide them, on the other hand, rests in the certainty that the people in charge are genuinely, reliably in charge. And that certainty is one of the most settling things a childhood can contain. It was not that they always agreed. It was that the children never got to watch them disagree. A child who can split their parents has lost the two people meant to hold them steady. The next rule is the one that turned a punishment into an actual lesson. Number 4. The consequence was small, immediate, and over. The modern consequence is enormous, delayed, and negotiable. A week without the tablet, announced in a fury, then quietly forgotten by Wednesday, or bargained down, or abandoned because it punished the parent as much as the child. The child learns that consequences are storms that are loud, badly aimed, and usually blow over if you wait. So they wait, and nothing is learned. A 1950s consequence was small, and it happened now. You threw the ball in the house after being told not to. The ball is put away for the rest of the day. Done. Not a week, not a lecture, not a withdrawal of love. A small, immediate, proportionate result, delivered calmly, and then finished and not mentioned again. The mechanism is that a consequence teaches only when the child can connect it to the act, and connection requires that it be immediate and proportionate. A punishment a week long or announced in anger teaches only that the parent is frightening and unpredictable. A small, instant, calm consequence teaches the actual lesson. This act leads to this result, and then clears completely, leaving no resentment to fester. She corrected the behavior without ever making the child the enemy. A consequence a week long teaches nothing. A consequence that fits the act and ends teaches everything. The next rule is about what filled the air in the house when nothing was wrong. Number 3. She noticed the good behavior, not just the bad. The modern parent, exhausted, operates as a smoke alarm, silent when things are fine, screaming when they are not. The child, ignored when calm and attended to when difficult, draws the obvious lesson that trouble is the reliable way to summon a parent's full attention, and so the child supplies more trouble, because negative attention is still attention, and a child would rather be shouted at than unseen. A 1950s mother, at her best, caught them being good, not with lavish, constant, empty praise, but with a quiet, specific acknowledgement at the right moment. You set the table nicely. Thank you. You were very patient with your brother today. A short, true word given when the child had earned it and not otherwise. The mechanism is that behavior grows toward whatever attention it receives. A child noticed only when difficult becomes more difficult. A child noticed when helpful becomes more helpful, because the helpfulness now summons the very thing the difficulty used to summon. She was not flattering them. Flattery a child sees through in a second. She was pointing a quiet spotlight at exactly the things she wanted more of and getting more of them. A child noticed only in trouble will keep finding trouble. Notice the good, and the good grows. The next rule is the one every other rule secretly depended on. Number 2. She was calm because she was not afraid of her child's unhappiness. The modern parent is often underneath frightened of the tantrum, of the tears, of the child's anger, of the child not liking them for an hour. That fear is visible to the child, who reads it instantly and learns that a big enough display of misery makes the parent flinch and fold. The upset becomes a tool, wielded with growing skill, and the parent, desperate to stop the crying, teaches the child that crying is how you win. A 1950s mother, generally, was not afraid of her child being briefly unhappy. She did not enjoy the tears, but she understood that a child being upset about a fair no was not an emergency, not a sign she had failed, and not something she was required to fix by giving in. She stayed calm, let the storm pass, and did not change the answer because of it. The mechanism is that a child is calmed by a parent who is calm, and frightened by a parent who is rattled. When the adult does not panic at the tears lose their power. They are just weather, and they pass. When the adult panics, the tears become the child's most reliable instrument, and the child learns to reach for them first. Her steadiness was not coldness. It was the anchor the whole household held on to, most of all the child doing the crying. A child is not calmed by getting their way. A child is calmed by an adult who did not panic. And all of it, every rule on this list, rested on one thing beneath them all. Maybe the modern struggle has less to do with our children or our love than we have been told. We have more knowledge than any generation before us, and it has not made the days easier, because knowledge was never the missing piece. Consistency was.
The saying, messy bed, messy head. I like things very organized, put away, and visually aesthetic. It also keeps that anxiety away, which I actually end up getting so much done. And that momentum just carries me throughout the rest of the afternoon, so I don't find that I'm getting into a slump. So today I will just give him a snack, and he will go watch TV, or he'll go outside for about an hour to play with the neighbors while he's doing kids different dinners than me and my husband eat. They're only 4 and 6, and so they're very picky eaters. I like to have salads most nights of the